On a map, Port Sudan looks like just another coastal city on the western shore of the Red Sea. But in global geopolitics, it sits next to one of the most important choke points on Earth. Every year, around 12% of global trade passes through the Red Sea, moving between Europe and Asia via the Suez Canal. Oil, gas, food, manufactured goods, all of it funnels through this narrow maritime corridor. And that's exactly why Russia wants to be there. Today's story is about a naval base Moscow hopes to build in Port Sudan, and why this project is far bigger than it looks. In February 2025, during a visit to Moscow, Sudan's former foreign minister was asked a seemingly simple question. Would Sudan sign an agreement allowing Russia to establish a naval base on the Red Sea? His answer was blunt. We are completely in agreement on this matter. There are no obstacles. But if this question were really that easy, we wouldn't still be talking about it. Because the Port Sudan base is not just a bilateral deal between Moscow and Khartoum. It's the latest chapter in a long Russian strategy, one that stretches across 3 seas: the Black Sea, the Mediterranean, and now the Red Sea. The story begins in November 2017, when Sudan's former president Omar al-Bashir traveled to the Russian city of Sochi. There, he met Vladimir Putin and made a striking statement calling Sudan Russia's key to Africa. That meeting marked a turning point. At the time, Bashir was under heavy Western pressure and sanctions. Russia, on the other hand, was looking for partners and ports beyond its traditional sphere. The Red Sea offered exactly that. In May 2019, just weeks after Bashir was overthrown, Moscow revealed that it had signed a military cooperation agreement with Sudan. The deal aimed to simplify access for warships to each other's ports. Then, in November 2020, President Vladimir Putin formally approved an agreement to establish a Russian naval logistics base in Port Sudan. On paper, the deal was clear. According to the agreement, the base would operate for 25 years, with automatic renewal. Officially, the base would function as a logistics and maintenance hub for refueling, repairs, and resupply. Unofficially, it would give Moscow something it has wanted for centuries: a permanent foothold on warm waters close to global trade routes. But despite Putin's approval, the deal stalled. Sudan's transitional authorities announced that the agreement required parliamentary approval, something that simply didn't exist in a country struggling with political instability. Meanwhile, global powers were watching closely. A Russian naval base on the Red Sea would place Moscow at the doorstep of one of the world's most sensitive maritime zones, right next to U.S., European, and Chinese interests. That concern became visible in February 2021, when Russia's frigate Admiral Grigorovich docked in Port Sudan, the first Russian warship to do so. It looked like a breakthrough, but just one day later, the U.S. Navy destroyer USS Winston S. Churchill appeared off the Sudanese coast. The message was subtle and unmistakable. The Red Sea is not just water, it's leverage. Any military presence here gives its owner the ability to monitor global trade flows, influence energy shipments, project power across the Middle East, East Africa, and the Indian Ocean. That's why Djibouti, a small country at the southern entrance of the Red Sea, hosts military bases from the United States, China, France, Japan. In other words, the world's major powers already understand the value of this corridor. Russia doesn't want to be the only one left out. To understand Moscow's push for Port Sudan, you need to zoom out. This base is not an isolated move. It's part of a strategic chain. First link, the Black Sea. Russia's naval power starts in the Black Sea, home to its most important warm-water fleet. Unlike Russia's northern ports, which freeze in winter, the Black Sea offers year-round access. After annexing Crimea in 2014, Moscow cemented its dominance over this maritime zone. Sevastopol became the backbone of Russian naval operations. The next step south is Tartus, Russia's only naval base in the Mediterranean. Established in 1971 under an agreement with Syria, Tartus allows Russian ships to refuel and undergo maintenance without passing through Turkish-controlled straits back to the Black Sea. It's a logistical shortcut and a geopolitical asset. Third link, Port Sudan. This is the missing piece. A base in Port Sudan would connect the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, allowing Russian ships to move faster and more efficiently toward the Indian Ocean, East Africa, and South Asia. It would also give Moscow eyes and ears on the growing foreign military presence in the region. Today, Sudan is once again at the center of this story. As fighting intensifies between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces, the military leadership is seeking external support. Russia, in return, sees an opportunity: military aid in exchange for strategic access. If the deal goes through, Moscow wouldn't just gain a base. It would gain influence over regional security arrangements, a stronger position in Africa, a platform to compete directly with Western and Chinese forces. This goes far beyond symbolism. A permanent Russian presence on the Red Sea would serve multiple goals at once: demonstrating global military reach, expanding geopolitical influence in Africa, competing for resources and alliances, challenging Western dominance over key trade routes. In short, it would turn Russia into a Red Sea power. And that raises the final question: will the world allow it? A Russian naval base in Port Sudan would reshape the balance of power in one of the world's most sensitive regions. So the real question isn't whether Moscow wants this base, it's whether the United States, its allies, and regional powers are willing to let Russia complete this chain and finally secure its long-sought gateway to the Red Sea.